Okay, so the time has come to talk about intentional. We should first follow up with action items. Oh, wait, we don't have any action items.
Yes.
I guess I could ask you yet again if you have any sort of decision regarding craft and commerce.
The decision is like 95% no.
Oh, dang
So,
it.
yeah, I know. I'm hoping it changes, but it's probably going to be no. I have a question for you before we launch into this since we don't have action items today. Are you willing
Okay,
to? You are friends with Chris Bailey, correct?
I am.
Okay. We're going to talk about Chris Bailey's book. Is there a conflict of interest here? Right? And I don't mean this in a serious way. I mean this in like we talked about it a little bit last show, that it's like, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. And my question is though, is like, were you involved in the writing of this book? Did he send you a pre-copy and ask you to edit it? Did he or proof it or anything like that? Like, I just want to know, like, what's the context? What's the background between you and Chris on this book?
I was not involved in this book.
Okay.
I helped edit his course, which is sort of tied to the same topic as the book. So I guess you could say I had a sneak preview of the book when I was editing those videos this summer. And he did send me an advance copy. We interviewed him and published an episode for Focused. So David and I both read the book before we talked to him.
I intentionally didn't listen to that before we had our conversation because I
Okay.
didn't want to be biased before I did the show.
Okay, so let me just share a little bit about me. If I were to get on that episode with David and talk to Chris, and David is gushing about this book, I would not be able to hide my disdain for it if I did not like it.
Okay.
I didn't struggle with that.
Yeah.
But there absolutely is conflict of interest here.
Yeah.
If you want to frame it that way.
That's where the question came from. I was like, well, listen, he's your friend, you know him,
Yeah.
like all this stuff. And I was more like, there are some things that I'm going to be critical about.
Sure.
And I'm really asking the question as like Mike and Cory are friends and we do a show together. And I didn't want to inadvertently step on your toes too strongly on the show. Like, I will step on your toes. I don't have any problem doing that. Like, that's okay. That's life.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to like smash anything on the show, like live on the show. So
No, go stomp on them. That's fine.
Okay. Cool. Thank you for giving us that disclaimer.
Yeah. So the way I got to be friends with Chris is I read his first book, The Productivity Project, and I really liked it. There was something he said in that book that has stuck with me for many years. He said that people are the reason for productivity. So you don't need to be efficient with your relationships. You can go ahead and try and be efficient with your tasks and your projects. You can get done what you need to get done at work and then go spend time with the people that matter most to you. I read Hyperfocus after that and loved it. At the time, I think the first time I actually had an interaction with Chris was when I reached out to him and asked him if he wanted to talk about his writing process for the bookworm episode that we recorded on that. So if you look at, I think it's episode 65 maybe or something like that. It's Hyperfocus by and with Chris Bailey or something like that. And that's because after the show, he spent 25 minutes nerding out about clicky keyboards and how he wrote the entire book in TextEdit.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Since then, I met him, I think originally at a relay show in Chicago. So there must have been like a live Mac Power Users or something that was at the Cards Against Humanity Theater. And David was there, if it was a live Mac Power Users, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove down because Chicago was close. I remember Chris flew in because he's a big Mac nerd. And David and I got lunch along with David's daughter at, what's that chicken place? Nando's?
I don't know. Chicago.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's Nando's. And then hung out with Chris the rest of the day. We went to Intelligentsia and had coffee, and just a really cool dude.
Nice.
And since then, I've just become closer friends with him. He's part of my small group mastermind, and then helped him with the the video project
Nice.
prior to this book. All that to say, though, I would like to think that if I had issues with something in this book, I would have no problem calling them out.
I think you would.
Yeah. I actually, in the library, I've been talking to people because Ward is actually in the library and he reads a lot. And I know he's a big fan of Chris Bailey's and just the books that he's read and listens to his podcast, stuff like that. And he was the one like asking me about this book prior to it being released. And I was like, well, I think it's good, but I can't wait for you to get it and let me know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh yeah, this is his best book. So I have at least external evidence that I'm not alone in loving this book, but yeah, teach their own. That's what makes the podcast fun.
And I haven't read his other two, so this is the first introduction to Chris Bailey for me.
Other three.
Oh, sorry,
he's got another one, How to Calm Your Mind, which is also pretty good. Not about meditation like I thought it was going to be. It's more just how do you actually focus. He also has an Audible book, which is the closest I have gotten to getting a mindfulness meditation routine to stick, and that is. What's it called? How to Train Your Mind, maybe? It's all about mindfulness meditation and just controlling your attention. Has zero religious, Buddhist, whatever background to it. And he actually in the Audible, because it is an Audible original, so it's not an actual book. It's an audio book. And sprinkled in there, he guides you through different mindfulness meditations, kind of like they would in the Headspace app or Calm, something like that, which was, I thought, a pretty cool project and a good use of the medium.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know he had those two. I knew about Hyperfocus, and then I knew about his original one, which I'm forgetting the title of right now.
Productivity Project.
Yeah. Well, good. Thanks for giving us a disclaimer, because I didn't know your connection to him. So
yeah, he's just a cool dude. And I will say I take very seriously the responsibility, I'll say, of like recommending a book or a product. I've done a couple sponsored videos for the YouTube channel, but I get pitches every single day. And I only do a couple of them because I want to know that I believe in the product before I would put my face on it.
Yeah.
So do with that what you will. Yeah, anything else you want to talk about before we get into the book itself?
Nope, I'm ready to rock.
All right. So as you have probably figured out by now, today's book is Intentional by Chris Bailey. Now, do you have the orange version of this?
Come on, Mike. I have the
you have the digital
version.
One, don't you?
Yeah,
Come on.
Digital. Always. That's always the answer.
All right. That's true. Okay, so you have no idea what the color of the cover is.
Well, I mean, I do because I screenshot the picture and put it on the YouTube thumbnail.
Nice. Okay, so there he shared with me the different cover designs, and the U.S. cover is this orange one with the circle.
Uh-huh.
The Canadian cover has like a gradient, and it has like a little paper airplane that's zipping across the page. And I actually think that. I think I like the orange one better overall, but I really like the color of the Canadian cover. If you can find that one, it's pretty cool. A little bit different font. The American one is very bold and in your face. But yeah, it's called Intentional. Subtitle: How to Finish What You Start. What a great subtitle.
Mm-hmm. It's a hook.
It is definitely a hook. This book has no sections. Just 8 chapters plus a chapter 0 and then a conclusion. Yep. Never seen a chapter 0 before. I don't think.
I've never have either. I was intrigued by the chapter 0.
Yeah. And yeah, there's I guess one thing you should know about the book before we get into it is that Chris has an affinity for research. So I actually didn't look at the bibliography in the back of this yet, but I'm assuming there's a whole bunch of stuff there, because what he does for fun, since his wife is a university professor, is he gets access to when I was in college, it was JSTOR. I don't even know what it is anymore. Like all the academic papers.
Yeah.
and he just reads them for fun.
Yeah.
And then he looks for something that's interesting and he's like, oh, I'll research that more and write a book about it.
That's a special kind of human right there. That is a special kind of human. But the access to the journals is a big deal, actually.
Yep.
I mean, those subscriptions and the way they do those, if you can get access to those, it's a really, really big deal, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what he does is he reads those, he writes the books, and then kind of what gets lost, I think, in the shuffle when you are reading the book is all the research that he's done, because he kind of is poking fun at himself and his vices throughout the book. So you maybe have a general sense of gurus who write these productivity books that they've got it all together. And that's definitely not the vibe you get when you read a Chris Bailey book, even though he has written all these books, and many of them are bestsellers. He gave a TED Talk when he did the Productivity Project. He's done several TED Talks since then, like a big TED Talk, not TEDx. And TED called him at one point the most productive man you'd ever hope to meet, which is, I think, the coolest line you could have in your biography ever.
Especially if you're a productivity person, which he claims himself to be, right? So,
yeah. See, that's the thing. I don't know that Chris would make that proclamation, but lots of people make it about him, and he goes with it. So I guess you could say he does.
Yeah.
But he's not some big pretentious, you have to pay me $275 an hour because that's my going rate. He's just one of the most authentic, intentional, kind humans you will come across.
Can we talk about his authenticity? Because he starts the book being authentic with his quick AI statement, which I don't know if you wanted to talk about his quick AI statement or not, but like he comes right out and says, we're in a different world. AI is a thing. Let me tell you how AI was used to make this book. And I'm going to tell you, Mike, I love this. Like, I absolutely love it, because you don't have to think about it. Like he just told you. And to summarize it, it's the rightful place that AI should have in our workflows is it should do the drudgery, not the art. And I was like, I completely could not agree with you more. This is what I'm trying to teach my students at CCU. There are things that AI is really good at that we don't like to do, and it doesn't really add a lot of value to the design or the solution. It just needs to be done. So let's kick that off to the AI tool or the LLM and just let it run and let it go. And I loved that he started the book with this little quick statement. It wasn't very long. It was super effective for me.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Thanks for calling that out. I remember conversations that David and I have had regarding the role of AI. And I think I probably am a little bit more on the let's use it more frequently in the process of making the art than either Chris or David would be. But I think Chris is the one who has thought through this the most, and that has rubbed off on both David and I. Basically everybody who he talks to about this, you can just tell he's put a lot of thought into this before arriving at this conclusion. And so everybody else is kind of figuring it out. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I think I'll do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it a lot. So good way to start the book, Chris.
Sweet. All right. I guess we'll start with chapter 0, first chapter 0 in the history of Bookworm, probably. Elusive goals. And this is kind of like an introduction, but a couple things that I jotted down from this section. The wind-up matters, but the follow-through matters more. And I have golfed. I don't consider myself a golfer, but that's kind of the analogy he uses here at the beginning. Are you a golfer, Cory?
I have golfed. I took a golf class at Penn State. Yes, that is correct. I took a golf class in college, but I don't golf very much. It takes too much time. I have too many kids, and it takes too much time. So
okay, so this was actually one thing that I was curious about is for non-golfers, which is me, and it sounds like is me. You also.
Absolutely. absolutely.
Is this an effective way to start the book?
Have you ever golfed?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say if you've golfed at all and you've ever hit a ball or even gone to the driving range, I think it is, because you can definitely see a difference in the way the club strikes the ball and the way the ball flies off the club. I made a joke about the golf class here because I think it's ridiculous that I took a golf class in college, but I actually learned that the follow through really, really, really matters. And it really matters, especially when you're putting, right? Like it determines where the ball's going to go. So
Yep.
I had no issues. I thought it was effective. I think his point is spot on. And it might just be because, again, and I'm going to probably say this a lot this episode, he was talking directly to me. Like he was saying, Cory, the wind up matters, but the follow through matters a lot more. And I was like, oh, Chris, you're killing me.
Yeah. So I agree. I've taken golf lessons. I'm still not a good golfer, and then basically haven't golfed in the last 15, 20 years because it's expensive and time consuming.
And it takes 3.5 hours.
Yeah. So it's not something that I really care to do. And I think the follow through point could be made many, many different ways. Like that follow through principle, I think applies in just about every sport. I grew up playing tennis. I played college tennis. Like follow through in tennis would resonate more with me because of that background. But that's what got me thinking. It's like you could take it with basketball or baseball or any of those other sports. Would that have been more effective than the golf story? But yeah, I think the point is made that the follow through matters. Maybe sports in general is the issue I have with this, because I know there are a lot of people who what the heck, I don't know, you just hit the little ball, right? But again, like the point he's making about follow through being the more important part of the process, I think that part is great and is maybe I don't want to say completely original, but I don't think there's a lot of people in the productivity space putting an emphasis on that part. They're focusing on when the club hits the ball, doing the thing. And I really like also in this section how he talked about we are perfectly productive whenever we do what we set out to do. This is a point I've heard him make before on one of the podcasts that I interviewed him for. This was something he said, one of the very first episodes that first times I talked to him. He said something along the lines of, if you meant to watch Netflix for 8 hours, then binging Netflix is the most productive thing you can do. It's when you don't mean to do that, when you have something else that you were going to do instead, and then it stole your attention and your focus for that long. That's where the problem comes in. So that I think is really important for the rest of the book. And then also he says to take the ideas that work for you and leave the rest. I agree with that 100%. It's kind of nice that somebody calls that out at the beginning of a book, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that goes to his authenticity, like you said before. The other one that I got out of this chapter is he really sets the stage for what it means to be intentional and what he means by intentional. Mental process that precedes our actual doing anything. And then one of the things, so you have a podcast called Intentional Family.
Yeah.
Right? And
then
Rachel
does. I show up sometimes.
Okay. So you've got that. And then he talks about goals a lot, Mike.
Yep.
So my question for you is, are you okay? How are you doing? Are you good with the way he's using the words intentional and goals?
Yeah. So I am okay with the way he's using intentional. I think that's great. We'll get to the goals part. Okay. I think my criticism of standard goals still stands, but I also think he agrees with me.
Okay. I can see that.
Okay. Are you ready to go to chapter 1?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So chapter 1 is the intention stack. This I think is brilliant. Okay. So if this was some other person writing this book, this would be buried about chapter 4 or 5. And there would be a whole bunch of buildup before the visual here. But this intention stack, I think, is a brilliant idea. And the basic premise here is that you have this funnel, right? And at the bottom, you have your present intention. As you go up the funnel and it gets wider, then you have your plans, your goals, your priorities, and your values. The values are the top part of the funnel. And essentially that makes this a values-based productivity funnel.
Yes, it
So
does.
we are speaking the same language here. And this is, I think, a great way to visualize this, but this is also my jam. So what did you think of the intention stack?
Okay. I love everything about the content of the intention stack. I love everything that he says about present intention, plans, goals, priorities, values. I love all of that stuff. I can't stand that he called it a stack. It's not a stack, Mike. It's a funnel, right? If you look at it, it's a funnel. You described it as a funnel. He describes it as a funnel. Like, it's a funnel. Why didn't we just call it the intention funnel?
Okay.
Could we please, like, I mean, the figure looks exactly like a funnel, right?
It
Like,
does.
so it just irks me probably more than it should. And I don't know why it bothers me as bad as it does. Had he simply changed the one word to funnel from stack, like, I mean, find and replace all, stack with funnel, I'm in. Because, like, to your point, like joking aside, I do wish you would have called it a funnel, because I think that just makes more sense visually and with the way you talk about it. But everything that's in there, I mean, and especially when he starts describing the different sections of it and how they feed into each other, and how, your values, narrow down. I wanted to say funnel down. How your values narrow down to your priorities and your goals and your intentions and all those things. It's just spot on. I mean, it's a really, really good model. It's an absolutely excellent model.
Okay, so I need to defend the stack here just a little bit. Okay. And this is the marketer in me.
Okay.
I have seen many, many, many marketing funnels. Okay. So the reason I think potentially that he used the word stack instead of funnel is that these things remain connected. You don't go from the values level to the priorities level and then your values don't matter anymore, like you would when a cold lead goes to a warm lead and when a warm lead goes to a hot lead. If you're talking about marketing, you have different people at different levels in that funnel where it's like, oh, not my responsibility anymore. Like I'm cutting the cord here. And he says that the more connected a goal is with what we value, the more motivated we are to get it done. So I think maybe stack implies that these things are built on top of one another, which again, maybe still doesn't fit, because then values should be the bottom, right? And then it would be like a pyramid. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. On the one hand, I see where you're coming from, and I think I maybe agree with you now that you pointed it out. On the other hand, I had no issue with it whatsoever, and it made perfect sense to me up until you said something.
I read it, and then I looked at the figure, and I was like, what? Like, that's a funnel. Like, we clearly just made a funnel, right? Like,
yeah.
And I was kind of taken back by it. But like I said, it doesn't take away from the content. I hear what you're saying, and I could not disagree with you more. I just do not think anything you just told me like holds any weight or importance. No. It's a funnel.
All right.
So I like that he calls out the distinctions between these areas too, right? So as he's describing this, an example of this would be a project is a goal that has an endpoint. And I think the thing that I like about it is, whether I'd forgotten or whether he just said it in a way that was more clear than people have said it in the past, his distinction or his delineation between these things, even though they're still connected, like they're definitely connected, one comes from another. Oh, like I looked at that and I was like, oh yeah, that actually does make total sense. Like, a project has an endpoint, a goal may or may not, right? Like it's broader than that. It's bigger than that. So I liked the way he added detail and, provided context for these things.
Yeah. A couple other things from this chapter, which are, I think, important for the rest of the discussion. Intention is a mental plan to do something. And he talks about deliberate versus default intentions throughout the book, where deliberate intentions are intentions that we set ourselves. The strength of an intention is our desire minus our aversion, which I think is an interesting way to do it. And so the takeaway from the first chapter here is pay attention to your actions, because that's where you're going to find out where your intentions are, what you are really desiring, what you're trying to avoid.
Yeah, so very true. I mean, the idea of default intentions, if I have a more important action item. I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but like my first action item coming out of this is observe. So I just want to observe something about my life. And like, I think I'm going to do it through the journal. I'm going to look at it and say, hey, what am I doing? Why am I doing this thing? So, okay, the next hour I'm going to work on this thing. Like, what's my intention behind this? What goal is this trying to go for? What priority is this trying to go for? So, like, I think observation of the daily actions that I have, I think is going to be action item number one for me. And we're only in chapter 1, technically, you know? So.
Yeah. So we'll see how many action items Cory has by the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any yet, but strong start to the book. Ready to go to chapter 2?
Yep.
Okay, so chapter 2 is all about values. And this could be an entire book, to be honest. So the thing that he talks about here with the 12 fundamental values, I know because I helped him with the course, that this is there's someone who I'm blanking on their name, but they've done a whole bunch of, Shalom Schwartz, that's what it is, did a whole bunch of research on fundamental human values, I think at the university in Israel.
Yeah, I don't remember where it is, but Schwartz is definitely the name.
Yep. And so talk to, I think that's the guy that he talked to, or maybe that was somebody else. I know he also talked to Tim Pitchell at some point, and that's going to come up later, I think. But I like this this framing for the fundamental values. Now, with these values, there are 4 different orientations where we want to improve or change, we want to conserve, or we're focused on ourselves, or we're focused on others. So you could redo this into a grid, kind of. It's not that simple. The chart, or the circular pie thing that Chris has in the book is actually simpler and easier to read, but it's essentially coming from that research. So there's 12 fundamental values: self-direction, stimulation, hedonism, achievement, power, face, security, tradition, conformity, humility, universalism, and benevolence. And in the course, Chris gets into all of them. I don't think we need to talk about all of them here. I have, as part of the development of that course, Chris has a values assessment. So you take the test and then it tells you what your strongest values are. Problem is, I took it so many times that I don't know which is the original results when we were testing everything. But I think it's really interesting. I love that kind of self-discovery stuff. I wish more people would do that sort of thing. I love me a good assessment. Values tell the story of who you already are, he says. Values are goals that take place on a very, very long time plane. And they are broad, transsituational, desirable goals that serve as guiding principles in people's lives. Now, the thing I think, which can maybe make people feel a little bit uncomfortable with this, is if you were to assess your values and you realize that these are, that the results are who you are, you may not like them. Okay, so for example, some of the cultural stuff and the groups that we decide to associate with, there are certain values that are held up and there are certain values that are put down. So you and I would probably both say, based on our religious communities that we're a part of, that hedonism would be a quote unquote negative value. And it's not, the point he makes with these is that these are neither good nor bad. They're just the things that we kind of naturally gravitate towards. And so I think it's actually important to understand how you're wired and where those motivations come from, because that can help you actually create and edit, he'll talk about that too, your goals so that they are more motivating and you're more likely to follow through on them. But yeah, this is one chapter that could have easily been an entire book, I think.
Yeah. I interestingly wrote a grant when I first came out of grad school that used Schwartz's theory of basic values. I didn't get the grant, but I wrote a grant that used this. So I was intrigued by this, came up and I was like, I know this name. Like, this name sounds familiar. And the fact that we're talking about values, the workshop that I lead adds values in. Like, it's one of the first things we do is we do a values assessment. One of the things I like about the way he describes it is there are these assessment tools, and he even says it in there that like some of them are like kind of, how do I say this? They're kind of chintzy. Like they're not the most robust tools in the world. Like they don't actually do that great of a job.
This is my issue with most of the quote unquote assessments that are out there. They're glorified Facebook quizzes.
Yep. So I like the idea of what he's describing here a lot better in terms of he has a wheel that's based on research that's been done, and I don't remember if he says it directly or not. So Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more of like, take this wheel and then think about what you do every day and think about the way you operate and figure out which one of these or which ones of these rank the highest and which ones of these rank the lowest for you. And then just think about that. Like consider what that means and how that impacts your life. And I like that approach to it, right? It's not just, oh, go to this link and do the values assessment. It's like actually it's more subjective because you're doing it on your own, but at the same time, I think it's more honest the way you're doing it. The other thing I can say is, having had a bunch of faculty go through a values-based assessment, having thought a lot about values in different projects that I've done, if you've never sat down and actually thought about your values, do it now. Go stop whatever you're doing, or as soon as you get a chance, and go do it now, because it tells you a lot about the decisions you make. It tells you a lot about the things you prioritize. It tells you a lot about your life. And it kind of like rounds out a lot of stuff. You're like, oh, that's why I, whatever it is. Like, so I've told you this before. Like, I love movies. I love stories. I love like getting lost in some other world. Right. And like, it's because like I do have that value of hedonism, right? Like I like the enjoyment of getting lost in that other world and like escaping from, the current situation. So that's just an example of, why like it helps you understand it. And then whether or not you act on that's a whole nother story. Like that's basically the rest of the book.
Yeah. So the hedonism value, I remember when we talked to Chris for the focused episode, he mentioned that was his highest value. And I think I've struggled with that one being included in this list for lots of reasons, including the one that I mentioned, that I think a lot of religious communities in particular view that as a negative thing. But also, I think we are motivated to either avoid pain or pursue pleasure. So that applies to all humans. So I kind of don't know what to do with that one. I kind of wish that one wasn't on the list, to be honest. I think what Chris would say, and the reason that it's on there, is that, yeah, everybody has that to some degree, but if it's one of your dominant values, it's more motivating for you than it is for somebody else. It's like putting the finger on the scale.
Yep.
So that's the key with any of the self-discovery stuff is don't try to achieve a specific outcome. Just look at it for what it is and say, what do I do with this? How can I use this to do more of what really matters? Which that's also something he says in this chapter, is that success is being true to who we are at a fundamental level. So if we're true to who we are at a fundamental level, I feel like that translates into more successful outcomes in terms of the goals that we would set. And maybe not even the goals that we would set, but how we would set them.
Yep, I agree. The two other points that he makes here that I think are really important for somebody that's going to do one of these assessments is understanding that the best way in my mind that I've found to do it is like your top whatever and your bottom whatever. Like don't try to find the value that you operate based on, because that's not realistic. And Chris calls that out. Like there's not one value. There are a series of values that you're prioritizing or not prioritizing for some reason or another. And then that can change over time. So you had said about like, well, I don't even remember the first one I did. And the reality is like the first one you did might not even matter, right? Like what matters is the time frame you care about. So I think he does a good job setting the stage for values and how to use them. And like you said, it's research based. So you said at the beginning of the show, like it's very research based, which is cool.
Yep. So speaking of research or a lack thereof, let's go to chapter 3, goal editing. And maybe you know where I'm going with this.
I 100% knew where you were going to go, and I am right. So go there, get there.
All right. So Chris has a bone to pick with SMART goals, and I am glad that he addresses this, because for a long time I have said I dislike goals, and the way to actually do more of what matters is not to set a goal, a SMART goal specifically, where I'm going to do this thing for a certain amount of time, get it done by this date, and make sure that it's simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound, all those things. That's garbage. Don't worry about any of that. Chris would agree. He says that SMART goals are not backed by science. And it's kind of crazy how this got steam, but the original source was a 985 word article from 1981, and then everybody just started citing SMART goals. Like,
Which
what
it was
the
like,
heck?
it was like one of the first viral. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't the first, but it was like it just went viral. Like that's
Yeah.
all it did. It went viral, and next thing you know, like this blog post just blows up.
Yeah. So don't love that. But if we can agree that SMART goals are dumb, then we can have a conversation about goals, and you might be able to convince me that they're worthwhile.
Mike, tell me how you really feel about SMART goals. I mean, I'm not really picking up on it here. I mean, do you like them? Do you not?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
he articulates several things that I guess I felt inherently, but didn't know how to say them. Goals don't have to be specific to be successful. I think that addresses most of my complaints in one sentence.
Yep.
We don't have to have complete control over what we accomplish, and every goal that you set is ultimately a prediction. I feel like that is important. So when you set a goal, if you are a goal setting person and that really resonates with you and you're going to set your goals and you're going to crush it and yada, 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 that's fine. But just recognize that it's really just a prediction and it could be wrong. Mentions that each goal should have 3 components: the outcome you predict will happen, the process or processes that will lead you to achieving that outcome, and the rate at which you're making progress. That is the important one. And that's where I think I can get on board with this. Because I remember when Chris was writing, I think the book before this, he was sharing this chart with our group because he wanted some public accountability for the number of words he was writing every day. It was actually the inspiration for that chart I made during NaNoWriMo that is not NaNoWriMo. Yeah.
I wondered.
Same sort of thing. You could just see the chart, going up. And I remember watching that chart, and just he keeps plodding away, and he keeps writing the words. And then before long, he's got the book done. I think this is the piece that most people will neglect, and I feel like it's the most important.
Can we use that example just to clarify this point? So his outcome goal in that situation would have been write a book.
Yep.
His process goal would have been write 500 words a day. Is that, would you say that? Or would it be write every day?
Good question. I'm not sure, because the outcome goal is probably, never had a book deal, so I don't know, but there probably is a certain number of words by a specific date. So if I remember right, the process goal is I'm going to shoot for this many words per day, like you were saying, but also kind of overshooting that target, knowing that I'll probably get rid of some of them in order to still meet the target.
Yeah, and then what's the last one? The rate is like, how am I doing on that? Am I actually hitting my process goal, or am I not? Or am I hitting it more days than I'm not? Or am I over my process goal, or am I under?
Yeah, so he had like a trend line, and he wanted to keep it above the trend line.
Yeah, which like I've never thought about goals within those 3 buckets, and even just the distinction. You had said about rate being the one that really jumped out at you. Even the distinction between an outcome goal and a process goal. I think way more in terms of outcome goals and way less in terms of process goals. And I think process goals make a lot more sense to me. Like, having read this, I'm like, oh, I think process goals are a lot more valuable than outcome goals. And then granted, you need all 3 of them, but at the same time, that was that's a really big insight for me as I worked through this goals section.
Well, he does mention that outcome goals tend to be more motivating, which is interesting. And then he has the ideal ratio for planning versus action.
I don't remember this. What was that?
20% planning, 80% action.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which addresses one of the issues I think I have with goal setting is I've seen people who just get so bogged down in managing the project and never actually doing the work required to complete the project, but they can manage the heck out of it.
Yeah. Yep. I liked his goal inventory. So
Yeah.
basically it's like write down all the current goals you're working toward. And then I really like the idea of then connecting that with the chapter before this and saying, what's the value? So, okay, so I've got this goal. What value is it hitting? I've got this goal. What value is it hitting? And then I'm almost positive he did this, and my brain is kind of mixing things up a little bit. So if I'm in the wrong place, Mike, tell me. But like, how many, like, am I hitting the right values? And right, it's not a matter of right and wrong, but it's like, am I hitting the values that are most important to me? And then how many of my projects right now are associated with that value, and just essentially doing that inventory. And I think that is action item number 2 for me, is like, I think there's a goal inventory in my future. I don't know if I want to write it down and commit to it right now, but like the idea of goal inventory seems very, very valuable that's hilarious. So I'm looking in the show doc and I don't want to steal your thunder, but Mike just wrote down create a goal inventory.
Well, it is actually in my my mind map. So that was one of my action items, is to make that goal inventory. So I was going to say, do it with me.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. Yep. I'll write it down.
All right. I think you're right that it's valuable to figure out how the values connect. One thing I want to call out though, because this is the segue into the next chapter, and he explicitly addresses this in this chapter, is that just because something isn't really strongly connected to your values and it's fun to do doesn't mean it's not worth doing. So just because a goal is a struggle doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. So that leads to the next one. Chapter 4 is ugly goals. And this is really about aversion, the things that we don't want to do and why we don't want to do them. Mentions that every goal has a combination of aversion and desire, which is interesting because you think that, I guess in my head, there's 2 approaches. One is, this is totally something I want to do. My motivation is really high, so this is going to be a breeze. And the other one is, I just don't want to do this at all. But I like the fact that this is a mix and we got to find the right balance here. This is where Tim Pitchell comes in. So there's a quote here from Tim Pitchell who says, procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's an emotion regulation problem. And I think that is right on the money. There are 6 characteristics of aversive tasks. They are boring, unpleasant, frustrating, far off in the future, unstructured, and meaningless. And this is where Chris's course speaks to this a lot. So it speaks to a lot of the content in this book, but the course is really on overcoming procrastination. So it's really this section of the book right here. And I remember those videos. He's got all these different tactics that you can use when you identify this thing is boring, or this thing is unpleasant, or this thing is frustrating. And it's not just, well, get clear on what you need to do. There are different levers that you can pull. And in the course, he talks about how easy they are to implement and what the payoff is for each one. So you can kind of pick the tactics that you want. So you can obviously try to get rid of the aversion. The way I guess you do that would be by increasing the enjoyment. So there are different ways that you can do that. You can do aversion journaling, make it about others, pair it with another task, give yourself a choice, gamify it. Those are all types of things that are in the course. And I don't think there's anything in the book that I really was like, oh, this is completely game changing. But that framing was really interesting. If I find myself now struggling to follow through on something, I feel like I have the tools to accurately diagnose a situation by asking why.
Yeah, I like how he thinks about aversion, and then he ties it right to his values. So he'll say like, oh, I'm self-directed and I'm structured. So therefore, here's a clear example of like, I've had this problem in the past with, goal achievement or whatever it was. This was the aversion I was having. And I realized if I just did the following, I could overcome that, or it would help me overcome that. And like, that was really helpful to me. So like, and then he gives a bunch of different examples here. And it was not just like, I'm going to tell you a story. It was like, this example applies directly to what I'm talking about. So I was really happy with that in terms of so the example he gives is post-pandemic goal. He wanted to lose 15%, lose weight to get to 15% body fat. But then he outlines like all the details of it. And it was just very, very valuable. He talks about in here that if one of your goals is aversive, or if you're aversive to one of your goals, then you can plan it out, connect the goals to habits, and add rewards and penalties. And Mike, like, I like this, but I don't think it works for me. And I don't know why. Like, I got to figure out why it works. I can plan it all day. I can try to connect it to a habit. Sometimes the habit will stick, sometimes it won't. I can say like, I'm going to reward myself or I'm going to penalize myself. And then I just go like, I don't care. Like I'm totally okay with either the not getting the reward or experiencing the penalty. And I'm wondering is like, are the stakes just not high enough? Like, do I need stakes that are just significantly higher at this stage in my life? And it kind of bothers me. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like I was kind of bothered by this aversion chapter because I think I realized there were multiple different sections where I saw like, oh, like you're averse to this goal, or you're like procrastinating on this goal. Why are you doing that, Cory? Like, analyze why you're doing that. So I don't want to make the show too much about like me thinking through this, but this chapter like impacted me. Like I was just kind of like, oh man,
Yeah.
I got to figure out what I'm doing here. And something's not right.
Well, I think there's a couple things here. So first, he mentions that accessing the logical centers in our brain helps decrease aversion, making it less likely that we procrastinate. So I think regardless of your values, taking the time to think about it increases the likelihood that you will follow through on what you want to do, or you can break the bad habit, etc. But I think there's another component to this, which is probably related to the issue that you were just describing, and that is the next chapter.
Yeah.
So the next chapter, chapter 5, is attractive goals. And really, this is about social contagion. Now, there's positive and negative social contagion. And he mentions that there are 5 factors that determine how much we desire making progress on our goals in the moment. Social norms, whether something is a habit, how much control we have, the attitudes we have about it, or expected emotions related to it. So I think if you're trying to build a habit, it's not a habit yet. You need to lean more heavily on some of these other things. And he mentions that specifically with the social contagion, a lot of that is hidden from view. We don't see it a lot of times. But for example, if a friend of yours becomes obese, you are 45% more likely to gain weight in the next 2 to 4 years. I mean, other people have said this for years. You are who you surround yourself with. So the goal, he says in this chapter, is to understand negative social contagion and double down on positive social contagion. So when you're talking about the things that you're trying to set goals for, and I'm picking on you just because you brought it up.
Oh, it's good.
But like, if you really wanted to do the thing, you could surround yourself with people who think that it is absolutely appalling that you're not doing this thing.
Yeah.
Right? Or you could join a group where they're just going to go do the thing every Saturday morning and they're going to call you if you're not there. And if you did those 2 things, I can almost guarantee that you're going to follow through on it.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's okay that you don't. Like, that's the other thing here is we can't do all the things. So let's pick the things that we really want to focus on, and let's put wood behind those arrows, and the things that are just nice to have, be okay letting those slide.
Yeah. Okay. So this brings me to a question I have for you between chapters 4 and chapters 5. So we start talking about habits. We come in here and we get to social contagion, and he's talking about forming habits and making them more automatic and all these things. If you look at the intention the intention stack, I didn't do that on purpose. I'm really sorry. If you look at the intention stack, habits aren't on the intention stack.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you think that's intentional? Like, do you think he didn't include those on there because they weren't important enough or they didn't fit well? I don't remember him talking about it. So if he talked about it, correct me, but.
Well, he does talk about habits in chapter 1. He talks about the 5 different types of habit cues: a certain time, a certain place, a preceding event, emotional state, or the presence of certain people. So I think that the habits, let's see, where would these fit? These would probably be somewhere between present intentions and plans.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Yeah. But there isn't a explicit level on the intention stack for habits. And I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just curious to me. I was like, this seems like a important enough thing to include on there, but he didn't include it on there. So it's just something that I noticed as I was reviewing.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have any specific action items from this chapter, but there's a couple things that I think you could potentially make action items out of. And that is, again, the awareness, right? Awareness is key when it comes to understanding social contagion. There are 3 questions I picked up from Jim Rohn back in the day, which I think are brilliant. Who am I allowing to speak into my life? What effect is that having on me? And is that okay? And that is essentially recognizing who you are surrounding yourself with and what impact they are having on your life. Yeah. So Chris says to surround yourself with other people chasing the same goal as you are. That creates the positive social contagion. And then always have intention behind what you are doing and make it contribute to something that you find important. I think that is the key. And what I like about this book in general, but I think it's worth calling out right here, is that he's not telling you to go find your purpose. He's telling you to create intention with your actions. So those are very different things. I think when people think about finding a purpose or a mission, I do it with the life theme. Some of the pushback I get from some of that stuff is, well, what if I do all this work and I figure out what I'm really motivated to do, and it's not in alignment with what I'm doing right now. If I go through this life theme process, are you going to make me quit my job? No. Yeah. Most of the time what happens is you go through the process, you recognize what's important to you, and your job, your vocation, your career is a way of living that out. But now you have a specific blueprint, which is going to infuse meaning and motivation into your day-to-day. It's now a deliberate intention instead of a default intention where you just show up and you do the thing and you do it better and it's more fun and you get more out of it.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of stuff out of this chapter either that you haven't already talked about. So I'm okay to move on to deeper goals now.
All right. Let's talk about deeper goals. So the very first thing he says here is that meaning is made, not found. So it's kind of what I was talking about. Misaligned goals make us feel guilty. Do you have any examples of this, by the way?
Misaligned goals.
I'm putting you on the spot here, but
yeah, I'm trying to think. Do I have anywhere misaligned goals make me feel guilty? Not off the top of my head. Do you?
I'm not sure that I do, but I remember the feeling. So that's what I wanted to call out here is like, you can tell when you have this goal to do this thing and you just, why am I doing this? This is so stupid. Right? Somebody decided that this was something that was worth doing and we just said, okay, and there was really no connection to it. Yeah. So I think this is really important because what do you do with that misaligned goal that's making you feel guilty? You don't have to do it.
Well, so this is a big deal, right? Like this is that idea of saying no or that idea of changing your mind and, oh, okay, I said I was going to do a thing, right? And I've committed to doing that. How strong do I stay on that commitment versus in a healthy and responsible way saying like, okay, this was a thing. It's not anymore. It's better for everybody, me and you and everybody that's involved, if we just part ways, right? And we figure out a way to do that like in a responsible manner. We don't just cut and run, like you don't just say, hey, I don't care anymore. But like that's been... for some reason, that's been on my mind a lot lately. And it's like, it maybe be just because in the last 2 weeks, I've felt like I've had so much to do and there's just not enough time in the day that I'm like, okay, like what am I out of alignment here? But like, and this is where I'm struggling with, like, I don't necessarily know if I feel guilty about it, but I can tell you that like, there's something that needs to happen, right? Like I want to do the goals that align more with my intentions, that align more with my values. I don't want to do the ones that are just like, well, so-and-so thinks I should do this because they say it's a good idea. And I'm just kind of like, I'm done. And I don't know if that's my 40-year-old man, coming out or, the cranky old man coming out, or if that's like actually me just maturing in terms of goal setting and productivity.
Yeah. So I think, that guilty feeling really is friction. If you're not in alignment, you experience friction.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would describe it. And it's not just individually, internally, when you're doing something against your values, you can experience friction anytime you work with somebody else. And that's really why there's all these like Kolbe assessments and working styles, is recognizing where the friction is going to come from so you can plan ahead and make it as streamlined as possible. So sorry, go ahead.
Well, he talks about something here that's related to what you're describing. You're talking about friction, and I like the friction wording a lot. He describes burnout, right? Burnout as the result of unmanaged chronic stress that we repeatedly experience. And I think about if you're living in this situation where your goals aren't aligned with your values, your actions aren't aligned with your values, your day-to-day isn't aligned with your values, aka you're not intentional about what you're doing, burnout is a natural byproduct of that. Like you just think about the fact that you're living in this idea of chronic stress. You called it friction, which I really, really liked. You're just living in this situation of something's not right. It's not right. It's not right. It's not right. And you can only do that for so long before I think like naturally and understandably, you're just like, I'm done. Like I'm out of here. Like I can't do it anymore.
100%. And that doesn't mean that you just avoid all of those things that are contrary to your values either. And this is where I think some of the best advice in the entire book comes, because he says when you have to do something against your top values. So you will have to do something against your top values. What do you do in those scenarios? Be sure to schedule time to do something congruent with those values.
Yep.
And he floats the idea of values days, which I think are pretty great. You don't have to take a whole day and build up a value, but that's really that's alignment right there.
That was a great example. His values days. Yeah.
Yeah. So really the big takeaway is no one invests in your values. There's no like formula for this, how you have to do it. But again, awareness is the key here.
I like the concept of tripwires too. I thought this was a really actionable and really good thing. So a tripwire would be a situation where you intentionally reflect. So one of the things we haven't talked a lot about in the episode so far is this idea of self-reflection, because he talks about self-reflection, self-direction, these kind of things quite a bit. But he talks about creating this self-reflective loop so we can notice what we're doing and we can like just call attention to it. And this ties into his mindfulness meditation type things. And so it's like he's doing a good job weaving a lot of things together in a natural way that doesn't sound like he's trying to force ideas together. He's like, no, these things are connected to each other, and here's how they are, or they might be connected to each other.
Yep. Anything else before we go into intentional rituals?
Nope, I'm good there. I'm good to go.
All right. So chapter 7 is intentional rituals. And he mentions that intentions quickly fade after they are initially set, and losing motivation on our intentions is normal. So if we can figure out a way to regularly bring back intentionality, it's going to create more motivation to do what we said was important to us. He mentions there's 3 things good intention rituals have, where we decide what you're going to have accomplished after we carry out our intentions. Helps us do this across multiple time frames, and then they should be kept simple. I think those are pretty great characteristics, but I didn't really actually have a whole lot in here. He does talk about rolling time blocking, where you schedule just a few hours out at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, I see you.
That was the phrase. That was the phrase that I couldn't remember, and I love it. He's talking right to me. Absolutely.
Okay. See, this is when I read that, I was like, this sounds like a terrible idea, because you know what will happen is I'll time block my morning, and then I'll get busy, and then I won't do it again. But I had the thought, this probably completely works for certain people in certain situations, and it's kind of interesting, but not surprising to me that this for you is like, oh yeah, this is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it just works with, like, the challenge I have is he talks at one point here about the creator and the manager and how their days are structured differently, right? Like, so the creator, they benefit from more of that, like, focused time, that time that's uninterrupted to really like pour into, and then they'll when they can't be focused, they'll do something else intentionally to do, to release their brain, and allow that creativeness to come back later. Whereas the manager is like, oh no, like I want to know like this chunk and 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 this chunk. And what I struggle with is like, I have to balance those two lines. Like there's part of my day that needs to be creator focused, creating classes, writing things, thinking about projects, those kind of things. And then there's other ones that are very much time managed. Like I got this advising appointment. I got this thing. He describes, and I'm almost positive it's here. I hope I'm not messing up the chapter, but it's got to be here. He describes like that one meeting that comes in and just blows up your morning, right? Like, oh, okay, I've got this 3.5 hour block planned out and I'm going to work on this paper and it's going to be amazing. And then they want to meet with me at 10:30 in the morning. And it's like, and it really does. Like it absolutely messes with that. So this idea of this rolling time blocking where you're more free, but at the same time, you're still getting the benefits of time blocking. So I look at this and I say, okay, in the morning, I'm going to time block the morning. And then what I'm going to let happen is I'm going to let all of the chaos that's going to happen in the morning, and like this student needs to meet with me and this thing happened and this project blew up, so I got to fix that, or this thing's happening in the lab. And then I can restructure and replan the afternoon. Like this actually works great. Like this is beautiful. And I'm going to start implementing this. So my action item is to implement this where I do a planning session either at night or in the morning. And then I do one around like lunchtime. It's going to be whenever that class break happens. I'll do another one. So that's my third action item out of this.
Wow. Nice. All right. Anything else from this chapter?
Nope.
Okay. So the next one then is Chapter 8, and this is putting it all together. This is basically the conclusion before the conclusion.
Yeah. I love what he tells you in the first part of this. He's like, I'm going to basically tell you everything I already told you in just a shorter way, right? Like I'm just going to condense everything down and I'm going to write it. And I don't remember how many pages it was. It couldn't have been more than 10 pages.
Yeah.
Like he just like, here it is. Boom. Like here's everything I just told you.
Yeah. So I do have one issue with this section.
Okay.
He's got 4 steps to following through on your goals. Step 1 is shape. Step 2 is act. Step 3 is edit. And then step 4 is 3 things: maintain, celebrate, and reflect. I mean, I get why those are grouped together, but also it's just weird.
Yeah. I thought the same thing too, and I was like, I'm just gonna let that one go. Like I'm not gonna dig into that one. But I agree
that's
with
exactly the reaction I had. I was like, okay, this is weird. Nah, it's okay.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Cool. I feel validated that you had the same reaction.
Oh, I absolutely had the same reaction. But I don't have very much out of this because it's legitimately what he says in the first 2 sentences or first paragraph. It's a recap of the last 7 chapters or 8 chapters.
How do you feel about having this and then a separate conclusion?
It doesn't bother me. Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't really bother me at all. I think he could have put this in the appendix and I'd have been totally fine. He could have been, or he could have, in we've read books in the past, like the published book or whatever. He could have linked us out to his website, in his email list and said, if you want a recap of everything, I've condensed it down to 5 pages. Here you go. And I would have been okay with that. I'd have been okay with it in his appendix or right here. Didn't really bother me because I could compartmentalize chapter 8 really easily and then just let it fly.
Okay. It kind of bugged me because chapter 0 was sort of like the pre stuff. So that's not an actual chapter. But then chapter 8 is sort of like the post stuff, and that is an actual chapter. So
I can see that.
Not a big deal, but yeah.
Is he a
thought it
programmer?
was a little weird.
Is he a programmer?
Tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't think he has a background in programming, but he probably knows a little bit about it. He's definitely a nerd.
The reason why I asked the question is because it's like programmers, like they count 0 to whatever, right? So in his mind, he started at chapter 0, which is chapter 1 to the rest of us. But I don't know if he's a programmer or not. I'm just making that up.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. All right, so then the last one is the conclusion, and this is pretty short. It's sort of the pep rally as you finish the book. Mentions to appreciate your defaults, recognize the things that you don't need to change, and then ends it, which I really appreciated, with a exhortation that you're actually getting a lot right. almost every productivity book I have ever read.
I hadn't thought about this.
Yeah, like you picked up this book because it's going to solve a problem that you're facing, and they spend quite a bit just poking you in the eye to agitate that problem until you feel like this is a huge deal and I need to resolve this now.
Yep.
And then what that does is it creates this expectation that this book is going to completely change your life, and then it doesn't, and you get mad and you're like, what the heck, David Allen, GTD doesn't work. Right?
Did you have a specific example? I couldn't tell if you had a specific example.
Well, I use that one because everybody knows GTD, and most people I've talked to have had some sort of, even if it's working for them now, they went through a period where they're like, GTD doesn't work, there must be something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. But everybody feels that GTD is the solution to their overwhelm problem, which is a huge problem.
Yep.
And so you could use other examples there to fill in the blanks, but the formula I feel like is the same.
Yep.
Poke, 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 poke. I'm the guru. Here you go. Here's the solution. It's going to completely change your life. And Chris is like, you know what? You're doing okay, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very positive. I love the Zen saying he has at the first part of this. If you meditate for 20 minutes, directs us to sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day, unless you're too busy, and then sit for an hour. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, that's a great Zen saying, you know?
Yeah.
The other one I like here is the idea of our intentions drive so much of what we're doing. It's okay to be like kind of in awe of that. Or he says to marvel at them, right? And I really like this idea of like, there's a lot of this stuff that we think we have control over, but we don't really have all that much control over it. And it's kind of how we're wired. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have a positive impact on it. That's what the nature of this entire book is like, how do we align these things better for us? And how are we more intentional, right? To use the title of the book. But like, also, it's kind of cool that we're wired the way we are. So this gets to his encouraging. It's kind of cool that we're wired the way we are. Be okay with that. Like be okay with that. So I like the way he closes out the book. You know, I actually think if you smushed chapter 8 and the conclusion together and just called it conclusion, that would be a better ending to the book, but I'm okay with it the way you did it.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too, but all right. Well, we made it through the book then. I guess let's talk about action items. So the one action item I have is to create a goal inventory. I'm going to drag you into that one with me. And then what other action items do you have?
Yeah, so I have two more. One of them is observe what I'm doing for a week and then try to connect it to that intention stack or funnel, but try to connect it to the intentions and see where those come, even taking it a little step further and connecting it to the values. So what values is this hitting? So that'll be part of just the activities that I'm doing. Then the goal inventory is a little bit different. You know, I have these things that are outlined as goals that I'm working on right now. And then the last one is, what does it look like for me to make rolling blocking a habit? Or like make rolling blocking something that I'm very, very good at and very consistent at. So I'm going to stew on that. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to actually implement that, but I'm going to try it for a day or two and see how it goes. And then, you know, see how effective that is. If it is, I'm going to keep doing it. So those are the three that I have.
Very cool. All right. Style and rating. So let me talk a little bit about the style here. We mentioned this throughout, but this is maybe the most approachable productivity book you will ever read. He talks probably a dozen times about his weakness for Uber Eats throughout the book.
Yep. Fast
man
food.
loves tasty food.
He does love tasty food.
I love this style, and I wish more people would take this approach. Not that you have to be self-deprecating all the time and pointing out all your weaknesses, but there's just so much communication. Like there's a certain vibe with the standard productivity book where if you're going to try to teach somebody a thing, You feel like you have to prove that you're worth listening to. And Chris doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because of the success that he's had, but I don't know, as someone who wants to write a book on personal retreats, I've been thinking about the outline and the marketing for that and how it connects to everything else. And I think there's just some inherent motivation to, well, this is all the social proof. This is how many personal retreats I've done, yada, yada, yada. And after reading this, I'm kind of like, no, I'll just share what I do and see if it works. Like, it works for me. Maybe it'll work for you too. I just really like that authentic tone that is shared here. And Chris is, even though Ted calls him the most productive man you'd ever hope to meet, feels like someone that, regardless of where you are, how successful you are, how much you care about productivity, you could just bump into him at a coffee shop and have a great conversation.
So the word that came to my head as you're talking, and I agree with you completely, it's conversational.
Yes.
Like, it just felt like a conversational style book that was backed with a ton of research and then really good, well thought out models. And so conversational.
So kind of like you're meeting a friend for coffee to talk about intentionality, and prior to meeting, they read every single relevant research study and are telling you about it in the nicest way possible.
Yep. That's a very good description. Yeah.
Okay. I also think the topic of this one is, well, number one, it's probably the most relevant book that Chris has written for me, because the whole values-based productivity thing, I had a product at one point called faith-based productivity, but I wrestled with, should I call it faith-based productivity or values-based productivity? Because really it's what is important to you and how do you use that as a filter for everything else that you do. It's the heart of the PKM stack model, which is behind everything that I do over at Practical PKM. Like, this is the book that was written for me. Maybe that influences this next statement that I'm going to say. Maybe it's just the fact that Chris now has 4 or 5 books under his belt, but I told him that this feels like the book that he was meant to write. In The Legend of Bagger Vance, they talk about finding your authentic swing, going back to the golf analogy in chapter 0. I feel like this is Chris's authentic swing, this book right here. So I like the topic. I like Chris Bailey. I like the way he writes. I think there is a lot of good stuff in here. I think it's a fairly fresh take on productivity. And I think there's only a couple other people who are maybe talking about this stuff in this way. Michael Hyatt maybe would be another one, but I like this better than any book that I've ever read by Michael Hyatt. And I've read a bunch of them. I like Michael Hyatt a lot. But this is a great book. I'm going to rate this one 5 stars. And I think that pretty much everybody in the Bookworm audience would, if you're listening this far into the podcast, if you are interested enough at least to not turn this off, I think there's something here for you.
Yeah. I think my biggest takeaway from this, so I agree with everything you said. I talked about the conversational style. I agree with everything you said. My biggest takeaway from this book is it didn't feel like a productivity book. Like, it didn't read like a productivity book. I mean, the tagline is intentional, how to finish what you start. But it's like, it didn't, I don't know. It just felt so much more natural. It felt so much more like there was like a bigger meaning behind it, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't just this like, oh, well, I've got these 4 different models and these rules and I'm going to go wrap a book around it and send it out there. It was more of like a, hey, you actually care. And because you care, you're going to do things. And you want to do these things and you want to do them well. So let's talk about how we do those things and how we do them well and how we're like, and it just felt like, and I don't know if it's a season right now that I'm in where I'm thinking about this stuff a lot. And I'm thinking about like the activities that I'm doing and the goals that I'm setting and the plans that I'm making, or if it's a situation, so like right book at the right time kind of a thing, or if he just hit the nail on the head I mean, you know Chris better than I do in terms of like, it just felt like it was a natural book. And you get that through the way it flowed from one section to another. It made sense. There were no like, wait, what just happened? Like, why did we do that? With the exception of the stack that looks like a funnel. So, so
You
the
mean,
only
okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I thought you
sorry.
inverted it there for a second.
No. So what I'm trying to figure out, Mike, is do I knock him for making a funnel stack, funnel stack, stack funnel? So like, do I knock him for that? And I don't think I do. Like, I really don't think I do, because I mean, I like
would be totally okay if you decided that you were going to, because I know like the way you framed that at the beginning, like, I have an issue with this. That's right in chapter 1. It's going to affect everything after that.
No, I mean, if he and I ever got a chance to talk, right? Like, I would ask him the question about like, why did you make a stack that looks exactly like a funnel and not call it a funnel, right? Like, but I would do it in like a joking way. Like, I wouldn't do it in like an aggressive way. But no, in all seriousness, there is so much good in here. Mike, you said the thing that if people make it this far into the episode, like 100% read this book. If you care at all about the work that you're doing and how you're wired and your values and all of that stuff goes into the work that you're doing or the life that you're living, I think you can glean 5, 6, 7, 10 things out of this book that you're like, I hadn't thought about that. I should look at that. Like, I might want to run that idea. I might want to run that model. Like, this book is intriguing me, right, in terms of like looking at Chris's other stuff. Like, what else has Chris done? Do I go back and read some of his other books? You know, like, and when you get a book like that, that's a 5-star book for me. Like, I'm easily in a 5-star book. This is a golden book for us, without a doubt. I would read this one again, actually, right? So we read a lot of books, and then that's just the books we read for the show. That's not the books we read, you know, as Gap books or as the other books that we read. I would actually prioritize reading this one again, just because I think there's enough in there that it's worth reading again.
Nice. All right. I'm a little bit surprised by that, to be honest, but I'll take it.
Yeah. No, I thought this was a great book.
Cool. All right. Well, let's put intentional on the shelf. What's next, Cory?
So the next book is The Overthinker's Guide to Making Decisions by Joseph Nguyen. He's written quite a few different books, all around the idea of, you know, thinking, don't believe everything you think. And he's a fairly popular author, well known in the, you know, kind of the thinking, self-development kind of space. And it came out in November of 25, so it's relatively new. But the full title is The Overthinker's Guide to Making Decisions: How to Make Decisions Without Losing Your Mind. And I'm going to tell you, like, I think the title is funny and interesting, and I want to give it a shot. Like, I'm intrigued to see what this book does for us and whether or not it helps us make decisions without losing our mind. Mike?
Nice. I had not heard of this book before, but I had heard of Don't Believe Everything You Think, and it fell off my radar, but I have since bought both of those when I realized it was the same person. These look very interesting. All right, so his
last.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Can I make one? His last book has 22,000 reviews on Amazon and 4.6 stars. So
okay.
now, like, I mean, I'm at least encouraged by that. I have no idea what we're getting into, but I'm encouraged by that.
Positive signs.
Yeah. So right. You're up next though. What's after that?
Yeah. So I had this one picked out, but I was kind of like, do I really want to do this one? And then during the episode, you brought up the burnout piece. So I think this is a perfect follow-up to this. We're going to read The End of Burnout: Why Work Drains Us and How to Build Better Lives by Jonathan Malisic.
Nice.
Something that came across my radar a while ago, and as I do when someone I look up to recommends a book, I buy it on the spot. So it's been sitting on the bookshelf in our bedroom for a while as one of those ones that I need to read at some point. And at first I was struggling with the topic of burnout, and I was like, maybe this is just relevant to me and we shouldn't make this a public thing for Bookworm. And then you mentioned the thing that Chris mentioned or talked about in this book, and I think it is a thing, and it's worth having a conversation about. I have no idea whether this book's going to be any good.
Awesome.
I don't know if it's going to be like a completely contradictory take to what we just read, but yeah, let's talk about burnout.
We can only hope. Like that's the way. So I'm like, hey, let's do it. Let's get it. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. You got any Gap books?
So I do. I don't, for the life of me, remember the name of it right now. I was trying to look it up real quick before you asked me what my Gap book was. But I definitely have a Gap book for that seminary track that I'm doing. So like all of my Gap book reading for the next 4 months is without a doubt going to be associated with that, and it is Reading the Gospels Wisely. So there you go. I found it in time. So it's Reading the Gospels Wisely by Pennington.
All right.
How about you?
So we are actually recording this less than a week after the last episode was recorded. So I'm still reading the same fiction book, but I am making progress. And I think in the back of I hesitate to share this publicly, but my thought is that maybe going forward, we'll have the nonfiction books for Bookworm and the fiction books will be the Gap books because I'm really liking Red Rising.
Yeah. Mike, you know what's going to happen next, right?
What?
We're going to have to do like an other week. So we're going to end up recording every week and it's going to be nonfiction, fiction, fiction, nonfiction, fiction.
I mean, that would actually be kind of fun, but that also sounds terrifying because I know how much time this takes.
We may just start with like every, once we get the fiction books done, we just record the episode. It's like a pop-up episode.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
As opposed to an every week thing.
Pro show episodes or something. I don't know. Yep. Speaking of which, if you want to support the show, you can do so for $7 a month. Head over to bookworm.fm/pro. When you support the show, you get a longer ad-free pro show. So we have an extra segment every time. This time we talked about our everyday carry, and there's a whole bunch of links in that pro show from the stuff that Cory and I have in our bags. You also get a bootleg version of the show that gets released right after we record it live. So that is usually about 2 weeks before the episode gets published. There's a 4K Bookworm wallpaper. There's access to my reading masterclass, a 2.5-hour workshop that I did. And you get all of that for $7 a month. So head on over to bookworm.fm/pro or patreon.com/bookwormfm. And if you are already a pro member, thank you so much for helping us keep the lights on. We really appreciate it.
If you're reading along with us, pick up The Overthinker's Guide to Making Decisions by Joseph Nguyen, and we will talk to you soon.